All right. This is to prove that the wrath of God doesn't happen during the 7 years, that the wrath of God happens after the 7 years are over. When you read Jeremiah, I'm not going to read the whole chapter, so you're going to have to do some reading on your own. But when you read Jeremiah 25, when you get down to verse 12, this is where he talks about after the 70 years are accomplished, what he's going to do to Babylon. And then he talks about what he's going to do to all the nations of the earth. So it says in Jeremiah 25:12, and it shall come to pass when 70 years are accomplished, the 70 years are over, that I will punish the king of Babylon and that nation, saith the Lord, for their iniquity. And the land of the Chaldeans, and I will make it perpetual desolations. And I will bring upon that land all my words which I have pronounced against it, even all that is written in this book, the book of Jeremiah or the Bible, whichever you want to do, which Jeremiah has prophesied against all the nations. So he tells Jeremiah to take this cup, the wine cup of the Lord's fury, right? He said in verse 15, for thus said the Lord God Israel unto me, take the wine cup of this fury. The wine cup of God's fury is the wrath of God at my hand, and cause all the nations to whom I send thee to drink it. And they shall drink and be moved, be mad because of the sword that I will send among them, right? Then Jeremiah said he took the cup from the Lord's hand, he took it to the nations to drink it, to wit, in verse 18, means he started at Jerusalem, right? And then he talked about the cities of Judah and the kings thereof, the princes thereof, to make a desolation, astonishment, and hissing. Verse 19, king of Pharaoh, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his servants and princes. Verse 20, all the mingled people, all the kings of the land of Uz, and all the kings of the land of the Philistines, and Ashkelon, and Azah, and Ekron. Verse 22, all the kings of Tyre. Verse 23, Dan, Dedan, Tamar, Buz, all that are in the utmost corners. Verse 24, all the kings of Arabia and all the kings of the mingled people. 25, all the kings of Zimri and all the kings of Elam. So you get the theme here, that he's taken this cup to all the kingdoms of the earth. What is it? The wine cup of God's fury, the wrath of God. Verse 26 of Jeremiah 25 says, and all the kings of the north, far and near, one with another, and all the kingdoms of the world, which are upon the face of the earth. And the king of Sheshach shall drink after them. Therefore thou shalt say unto them, thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, drink ye and be drunken and spew or vomit, and fall and rise no more because of the sword which I will send among you. In verse 29, he says, for in the latter part of verse 28, he said, ye shall certainly drink, right? Talking to the nations. Verse 29, for the Lord begin to bring evil on the city which is called by my name, which is Jerusalem. And should you be utterly unpunished? You should not be unpunished, for I will call for sword upon all the inhabitants of the earth, said the Lord of hosts. One more verse. Therefore prophesy thou against them all these words, and say unto them, the Lord shall roar from on high, and utter his voice from his holy habitation. He shall mightily roar upon his habitation. He shall give a shout as they that tread the grapes against all the inhabitants of the earth. Now, what I want you to notice was that he said he will punish the nations of the earth after the 70 years have been accomplished. We know the 70 years of captivity for the Jews at Babylon has been accomplished a long time ago. But when did he say he will punish the nations of the earth? After the 70 years are over. But there has been no punishment throughout the history of mankind from that point to this day of this recording. What is the day? Something in June here. That God has not, this is the 23rd day of June 2023, God has not punished the nations of the earth. So when you come to Daniel chapter 9, verses 1 and 2, and I'm just going to say it for the lack of time, Daniel says, I understood by books the number of years that Jeremiah the prophet spoke of. So he picks up Jeremiah's prophecy of 70 years, right? He says, I understand the years. And when you get to Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24, Daniel says 70 weeks. 70 weeks are determined upon thy people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins. And we know sin hasn't ended. And to make reconciliation for iniquity and to bring in everlasting righteousness. We know that hasn't happened. and to seal up the vision and prophecy and anoint the most holy, right? So we know when Daniel picks this up, he's talking about a time in the future when sin is going to end, and it's still referencing Jeremiah's prophecy that after the 70 years are over, that God will punish the nations of the earth. All right, go down to verse 27 of Daniel chapter 9. It says, and he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. We know this week is 7 days or 7 years, each day appointed a year, right? So we know there's one more 7 to come. And we know according to Revelation chapter 13, verses 1 through 5, and in particular, verse 5, it's talking about the Antichrist coming to power. In those verses, he has power to continue for 42 months, not 42 hours, 42 days, 42 months. So 42 in the Antichrist coming to power in the midst of the week, when he places abomination that make it desolate, right? So 42 twice is 84, giving you 7 years, based upon a year of 360 days, and each month having 30 days equal in it. That's the way that runs. So we know that this 1 week has not yet been fulfilled. You say, okay, what's the big deal about the 1 week? Remember, after the 70 years were completed, God was supposed to punish the nations with his wrath. He didn't. Then Daniel picks up the prophecy and says, oh, I understood by books the number of years that Jeremiah the prophet spoke of. So now Daniel tells us, hey, the punishment of the 7 years are going to happen. But when is the punishment of the nations going to happen? Before the 7 years? No, it's going to happen after the 7 years. It's not going to happen during the 7 years, because there are going to be Christians here on the earth also during the 7 years. So you can't pour out God's wrath. 1 Thessalonians 5:9, God promised us we would not experience his wrath. So the 70 years, 70 weeks, 1 week of 7, 1 week of 7, the punishment of the nations doesn't happen during the 7 years. It happens after the 7 years. Now, I have 5 videos on YouTube teaching on the book of Revelation. They're under the title PT1, the letter P, the letter T, and the number 1. PT1, the pre-wrath rapture, and the third coming of Jesus. PT2, PT3, PT4, just change what part you're looking for. PT5, the pre-wrath rapture, and third coming of Jesus. And I lay out the book of Revelation to you, and I prove also in Revelation chapter 13 through chapter 15, and Revelation chapter 8 through chapter 11, that the wrath of God in Revelation chapter 16, the bowls or the vials, happen after the 7-year period is over. Also, there's another wrath, the trumpets. The trumpets are the wrath of the Lamb. It's announced in Revelation chapter 6, verses, you can go 12 through 17, in particular, verses 15 through 17. The trumpets are the wrath of the Lamb. There's a wrath of God the Father, the bowls. There's a wrath of Jesus, the Son of God, the Lamb, which is the trumpets. There's a third wrath, which is Satan's wrath. Satan's wrath will take place during the last 3.5 years of the 7-year period. He comes down from heaven and lost his great war in Revelation chapter 12. He begins to persecute the woman who brought forth Jesus, the man-child. And at that time, he will possess the man called the man of sin. And Satan, through this man, will pour out his wrath on the earth during the last 3.5 years of the 7 years. That is not God's wrath. And I show you on my teaching on the book of Revelation, if you go and watch the videos, proof positive that the wrath starts after the 7 years. I show it to you twice in the book of Revelation in 2 different places. This is Brother Bill, Pastor Windsor Change Ministries, up here in Ozark, Crazo, Alabama. God bless y'all, and bye-bye. Watch the videos.